Took out the CPU only loop in the M3, took that apart, and rebuilt it. Now it's a full loop here. Let's get it. Welcome to Machines and More. On this channel, I cover a variety of tech-related topics. PC building is my passion, and especially when I have the bandwidth, custom liquid-cooled builds like the one that we're discussing today. So real quick, if you enjoy content like this, please make sure you give a like and a sub here. Really helps. Big thanks. The previous build in this case was a 285K CPU only loop with a thick top 240. And I switched some things around. So first off, this is the NCase M3 still. This is the Grater. It's the vented front panel version. It's an incredible case, just slightly larger than the Cooler Master NR200, but there's tons of flexibility. And that's what allows me to do a build in this particular fashion. So the main parts here, I did change the motherboard. Motherboard is the X870i from MSI. One of the best boards now in the mini-itx space. I am not using the riser card here. I really don't need it since I don't have any front headers with the Grater panel. And I really wanted to go with this one because out of all the boards that I have on hand, it is the best one that is also silverish to match here. Actually, all the MSI mini-itx boards in this generation would have worked, but this is the best one. On the X870i, I've got the Ryzen 7 9850X3D, the best gaming CPU you can get now. Although in my opinion, the 9800X3 is going to be the one that makes more sense from a cost perspective though. DDR5 kit is G.Skill's 6000 MHz CL28. Power supply is ASUS Low-Key SFX-L 850 watt unit. And the card, which I water blocked, it's actually the same 5070 Ti card that was in that other CPU only loop in the M3. That had a big tough cooler on it, but now I put an Alpha Cool Core water block on it, and you can't tell that it used to be that big, right? So other cooling, liquid cooling components. On the 9850X3D, I mounted the Optimus Foundation AM5 block. This is an old block that I got in the AM4 days, and it's switched around into quite a few builds. It is an excellent block, and I've been eyeing the new signature blocks a little bit. But, you know, this one works perfectly fine, and just those signature blocks look really nice. The tubing here is PrimoChill's LRT flexible tubing. It is 1016, so it's a little bit harder to work with, but it holds up well for more tight bending since it got thicker sidewalls. And the coolant is PrimoChill's Liquid Utopia. I added some dye to it. I was aiming for orange, and I think it looks okay. But part of me also died a little bit when my eldest son told me, you know, it looks cool, Dad, but why did the water turn brown? So, I mean, I guess it could look a little bit brown if it's dark, but it's orange. Fittings are a mix of Alpha Cool and Bits Power. All this is stuff that I've recycled out of past builds. And these things, if you get good components, they do last. So definitely, you know, buy once, cry once type of thing if you're shopping for liquid cooling components. Pump res is back here. It's the ModUltra Laurel, which I used in a T1 Ref build before. That is mounted directly next to the motherboard to the main board panel. So the main thesis here is to minimize noise by maximizing the radiators that I can fit into this case's dimensions. And since I am waiting on a glass panel for the case, I did want to keep the side clear instead of putting yet another rad here, which at this point with all this stuff here, it wouldn't really fit anyway. And I've always wanted to do an SFF top and bottom rad setup without using slim rads and without using slim fans. And I think this setup really goes to show just how much more capable the NCase M3 is versus the OG NR200. In that case, I did a top and bottom setup with a slim everything, you know, many years ago. And that was a little bit of a struggle. So on top is the Corsair XR5 240. These are all rebadged Hardware Labs radiators, 30 millimeters thick, some of the best in business. And I had to pull the A12 G2 Chromaxes from my other M3 build. And yes, I wish the albino ones were here already, but if that day ever comes, that'll be easy enough to swap in. Probably it won't come while this build is still alive though, right? So at the bottom, 280 Corsair XR5 and two A14 G2 Chromaxes. So it's the same rad, just bigger and bigger fans, same generation, right? G2s. There's a small air gap between the left 140 and the GPU blocks. It's good enough. All rad fans are exhausting, and I set up an extra G2 Chromax, A12 G2 Chromax here at the back as an intake to help feed these Rads. One thing I did a little bit different with this one, I managed to get all the fans hooked up to a Corsair Commander Pro, a fan controller, which I've hidden at the side mainboard panel, but it's still easy to plug in stuff. I really hate the Corsair IQ software, but it's okay. It's just super buggy when you're trying to see your fans and stuff. You know, the fans will just randomly disappear. They're still being controlled, but you know. One note, usually for my custom builds, I like to go with a SUSE board since they have a temp probe header, even on the more, you know, mid-level B series boards. And if I had one on those boards, I probably would have just plugged fans back to the board instead of doing it this way. You might have seen the white Strix B850-I, but from what I understand, it's not coming to North America just yet. With Computex coming up, though, maybe I'll have to take a side trip and see if I can find one, right? Okay, loop order. This one's a little bit different since I did a parallel loop between the CPU and GPU. The coolant will exit the pump, go into the top rad, and that drops down to the bottom rad, and that's going to feed the GPU block from this port here, feeds the in here. And then that's going to split off the CPU block as well, and then that's going to exit out of the GPU port and then feeds the pump back here. So in theory, a serial loop could balance things out a little bit better. The Optimus blocks tend to be higher restriction ones, but I actually didn't notice too many issues. I think the thermals are okay. It just looks a little bit more intriguing to do this type of loop, but it takes up more space, especially for an SFF build that could be, you know, space is a premium, right? But I can do it here. For the temps, the main goal here was to keep fan speeds as low as possible, or at least to the, you know, inaudible threshold, while getting very decent performance. For the stock settings, which I tested at first before doing some of my optimizations, the CPU only, the Blender test here, 9850X3D runs at about 137 watts. It can go up to 145 sometimes. The CPU is thermally very, very dense though, and in my experience, it tends to run quite hot. As a reference point, when I did my launch review, with the D15 G2, it came in at 83-ish when I normalized that to the same ambient temp. The difference is, though, that was full speed on both 140mm G2 fans there, versus here, everything's actually running at 900 RPM, and you do not hear any ramping up. It stays the same level. So if I wanted to chase temps, I could up the fan curve a bit. It's tougher to get the heat out of this IHS with the 9850X3D and the 9800X3D, even with a good block like this. That's just how these CPUs are. Now, if I dial in an undervolt with a power limit, lift the boost ceiling 200 megahertz, this actually improved immensely. That's only a 19 watt drop in power, but I'm getting way better temps, and I can go even lower on the fan RPM. It's not that I need to, because I couldn't hear it before anyway, but in either scenario, you really would be hard pressed to pick out the fan noise, since it's just a little low rumble over the ambient sound levels. For 1440p gaming, temps here are just fine. CPU power is going to vary from title to title, but there's no real concerns here even at stock. 5070 Ti at 275 watts is acceptably cool. The fans are more audible at this point. Now, after I optimized things a bit, I played with the fan curves. The coolant temp previously didn't really need to be that low. I mean, 40 degrees is pretty cool in that scenario. I'm happy with a little bit warmer but less noise, so I ended up dialing things out into the 900 to 1000 RPM range. CPU with undervolt is very comfortable here, and the GPU essentially is performing the same. So I am quite happy with the results set up with these Noctua G2s, especially for noise. So some problems or unique problems that I had to solve. So I did play around with the cable management a bit, and what I ended up doing was using standoffs for the power supply cage, and then making this little channel behind the mounting area just to route cables through. Now, I was afraid that the power supply would tip since it's only at the 2 screw locations. I put in 2 extra standoffs anyway, but I repurposed the tough GPU sag bracket right back here with the PSU, just propped it up. And interestingly, it lined up perfectly with one of the holes at the front. So the standoff and screw, it can sit at the front here. It's kind of funny, but it works. Problem, the top section is really tight with the 240s hitting up against the power plug, and then the fitting hits the power supply. And I wish that I could have relocated the power plug just to free up some room, because underneath the back fan might have made a lot of sense, but there is actually no cutout there. And one thing I could have done is to have used an SFX power supply, which I actually thought of at first. And I was kind of thinking the white color, or the shade of white, on the Loki, it matched up better overall with the Rads. So that's why I stuck with it over the Lianli SP1000, which I have in white. So filling was also a bit tough since I preferred to use the top port to fill, but I ended up managing cables directly over that. And then you do have to loosen the rad and then shift things out of the way, you know, kind of drip it in there. It worked. It just was a very tight space over on the backside panel to do all that. Finally, the bottom rad does not attach except on the last rail here. So I don't know why the case doesn't have a proper mounting rail here. I did experience a similar issue with my bottom AI M3 build a few weeks ago, and maybe that can just be an improvement for a future version of this case. Overall though, having done a few custom loops in the M3, I feel like this is the best SFF case to do a custom loop in now. It can still be challenging to lay out and to design and pick out the right orientation of things, but building in it turned out to be not too terrible. It's actually not cramped to where you can't tighten fittings or, you know, get them into where you want them, and you have a great deal of flexibility, and you can take the case apart at plenty of points if you need to access, to build around. And if you're looking at doing a custom loop in traditional layout in SFF, I really recommend this case for that purpose. And I'm still just tickled that I could get 55 millimeters at the top and the bottom, both to fit in this case. So what's next? I'm waiting to get my hands on a smaller pump because I want to switch over to a rigid metal tubing along with like a distro section on, you know, on the main board panel here. There's a specific pump that I'm waiting on. You probably know what I'm talking about. Hopefully I can get a peek at it at Computex. Stay tuned. This is going to get updated some more soon. As always, any questions, let me know down below. Give a like if you enjoyed it, sub if you want more, links if you want to buy stuff. Big thanks for watching.